whole life as she's been connecting with being a spirit dancer. And this is the next layer. And there's so many stories around it that I don't want to say a story that she might say. So I really want to get the show going. So this is the podcast, Spirit Dancer. Welcome in. And Sabine Goerke-Shrode, I am so happy to be hosting you today. How are you doing?
Good morning, Rhonda. Thank you for having me. I am doing exceptionally well. This is a wonderful autumn day out there, and it's just fun to start the day off with a podcast like this. So thank you for inviting me.
I'm just like lifting my head and just breathing it in. So everybody give yourself a deep breath in. This is the space to get in flow
Mhm.
and feel you. And I guess, you know what? I'm thinking maybe even a journal today because you may want to do some travel plans real soon. By the time you're done, all the stuff you're going to be learning from Sabina's travels and what she wants to talk about, you may want to be connecting with her. So pen and journal. And Sabina, let's go for it. Welcome into your show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about transformational travel because I have just come back from a month in England, in Wales, and there were a lot of insights for myself on what I did, how I did it, why I did it. And it was just fun to see how it shifted inside me. So I wanted to share some of those moments of what you can do when you go travel. And I want to say upfront, everybody has their own style of traveling and what they want out of it. So if you're just exhausted and you want to go on a vacation and be on a beach and enjoy that, that is a perfect way to rejuvenate and come back refreshed. I'm not saying that what I'm talking about is the one and only way, but it's a way to bring intention to travel. And anybody who's been heard me talking a lot knows that the word intention is really key to a lot of how I live, how I want to live, because only by being aware what we do, what we think, can we really live meaningful going forward. And that is something I've really worked on for a long time now. And I know Ronna and I have talked a lot about that too, this kind of intentional living, mindset living, so that we really can be purposeful in what we do. So for me, when I went to England, I had a very specific focus. I have been very focused on medieval English history because I have a past life in there, and that was something that triggered a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of historical fiction reading. I love historical fiction. I love walking into different realities and feeling like I'm part of it. So that was my focus for this trip, and I built it that way. So I had very specific places I want to experience and really set the intention of I want to feel history. Usually history is something that, it's like a mindset. You read about it, it's wonderful, it's interesting, but what does it actually mean? What does it bring to you? What I wanted to experience was, how did people live in castles, in villages, in the landscape, in the energy of Wales? And that was my focus for this whole trip. And I really learned a lot of other things along the way. Yes, I was able to fulfill that. I had wonderful insights, wonderful castles to see, wonderful reenactors to talk to, and just enjoyed that part. But I also realized I was going for 4 weeks, and I really disconnected from my life here in the United States. I mean, people knew where I was, and I got a few text messages here and there, but I was untethered. And I use that word on purpose. And so I could really focus on just being by myself, being in the moment, and loving how I was moving through moment to moment to moment. And that was enlightening because I've never done this for, it was nearly 5 weeks, for that long time period. And usually you go 2-3 weeks if you're lucky to go on a longer vacation. This was extremely long, and it was very much, I was by myself, and I just loved it. I came back afterwards, and again, Ron and I had a good discussion on that, feeling like I was completely whole. I had all my pieces with me. Nobody was pulling at me. And when you come back, and then I hit the the road running, and everybody's been pulling at me again all weeks. But now I have that perspective of, oh my God, look how much you're doing, how much you're giving to other organizations, and what is happening to you, and how do you feel? And so,
Sabina, can I add in something?
yes,
Because I just want you to smooth over this thing because you're going into another good area here before you leave it. When you came back, I loved having the conversation about your awareness being gone that long and untethered. You started recognizing new things about yourself that was already there, but it came more to light because you were already talking about some certain transformations and you came back just being it
right.
and recognizing that the life that you left almost 5 weeks ago was the things you were asking not to happen anymore, and you got to be in that and experience and say, oh yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. So a lot of growth in the traveling.
Yeah. What it is, and especially we women, we're all involved in so many different things. We're juggling so much, family, children, husbands, a job, 2 jobs, volunteer work, trying to find time for ourselves. It's that constant running balance. I am single, so I don't have some of those connections, but I've always been very involved in my community and very involved in different projects. And I have learned along the way over the years that I overcommit very easily. And that is a learning curve. I remember once I totaled up all the organizations I was working with, and it was, even to me, even though I knew I was doing a lot, I looked at the number and kind of went, oh my God. And then I went, the top 5, and everything else needs to leave my life. And I still do that exercise every year now. Where am I involved and what needs to leave again? And coming back after a month of not a single meeting. Imagine that, no meeting. No Zoom, I'm sorry. No Zoom.
Davina, did you get lost at all in the feeling of like your body sizzling, like I'm supposed to be part of something, or were you able to like right away let it go? How'd that feel for you when you first started your vacation?
I mean, coming to and starting, right away with these are the places I want to visit. The first few days, I felt like a wonderful tourist just wandering through and soaking it up. And I love England, and I love the atmosphere and the culture there. So it was just beautiful. But then it went longer. And after a week, you kind of go, this is where I am. This is who I am right now. And then you start settling in. I had built this trip with lots of time in between. So I had about a week in each location. And I had only a few things that I knew I was going to want to see. But beyond that, it was, let's stay open. I want to be able to drive. I want to be able to sit by a lake and just spend an afternoon looking at the sun, whatever comes along. And I built that in. And that's where this realization comes in. I've never, not never, but I really have that much time for myself. I really have that much time to just sit and reflect and say, oh, I feel really good. I love being alone. I love being in silence. So these were I love being in nature. And so had these moments, and it wasn't just half an hour. I could just sit there as long as I wanted, and nobody needed me to do anything. And that was a gift that I hadn't realized as consciously that this would come to me. And I really loved it. And it gave me time to reflect on what is important to me right now in this stage of my life. What is it I want to do now? And that was this kind of stay meditative in silence. Don't be in another meeting. Don't do another thing. And that to me was one of the big transformative parts that came out of this trip. Just having creating that space to be who I wanted to be in the moment. And the other part for me that was equally strong was I had at the end, 2 weeks in the Lake District and in the Cotswolds, and I wanted to experience the landscape there and the energy of the landscape, and realized very quickly what I didn't like about it. I loved the landscapes are amazing, and sitting on a mountain, and it's just wonderful. But realizing how many people were there who were trying to do the same thing in a very small infrastructure in England, that is an issue. I didn't like that. I didn't feel good. There were too many people. There were too many tourist-centered activities, and it didn't feel like this is where I fitted in. And so I realized that my expectations had been different than the reality was, which is good when that happens. And what could I learn from it for the future so I wouldn't repeat that again? Because I had a good time, but I didn't need 2 weeks for it. Like, that was not where I needed to be. What I did the first 2 weeks really fed me, being in that medieval mindset and learning how to feel that energy, how people moved through spaces, how people lived, how people interacted. When you read this in books, you just can't feel that. But when you are in this place, then you suddenly go, oh, this connects here and this connects here. And I that was one of the first 2 weeks where I really started building a network of connection points for all the different stories that I knew about. And I just love that, because now I have a full picture of it. But in the Lake District, in the Cotswolds, I was sightseeing. I didn't have a purpose for it other than the landscape. And I got bored very quickly. I loved the landscape, but I realized that alone isn't what I want out of a trip. I want a purpose behind it.
Mhm.
So, which is why I said in the beginning, it doesn't always have to be that way. For somebody who's very tired, who needs to just rejuvenate, a agenda is just what they need. So it's not, one size fits all traveling. But for me, I realized I like a specific intent within a trip, within a travel, so that I can learn something and integrate that. And one of the things I have learned over my travel years is that previous life connection. We all have places in the world we're drawn to. I am heavy in England. I'm heavy in the Mediterranean. Those are previous lives. I'm an archaeologist by training. No surprise there. That too hangs in that. And those are areas that give me pieces of those different lives, of those different experiences that integrate into today. And I love that part. So this is how I like to travel. But I also have had travel where I just kind of went, sure, I'll go on this trip with you. And then, oh my God, it's so transformative, and I didn't even know it would happen. So, be open is the other way.
Sabine, I have a question.
Mhm.
I can hear you're starting to get more, you're building the story here, and you're starting to get into the connection of past life and
Mhm.
the land and the journey. Can we go in there a little bit more where you want to kind of introduce, because we have some people here that may want to understand what you mean by past lives, and not to break it down real basic, but
Yeah.
uh and
Mm.
the approach that you're doing in your travel. If we could go there, I think
Yeah.
that would help build that story too.
Yeah. When I talk about past lives, we're souls. We choose a life to live with a specific intent to learn. And we have more than one life typically in o- along the way, because each life gives us a piece to learn, and then the next life builds on it, and the next life potentially builds on it. That's how I see it. So I have had a soul regression, so I know a few of my past lives. I've also had just moments where in a lucid dream or so a past life comes up, and once you start working in on that basis, it happens more and more. So that medieval England part is a lucid dream. I know I was there. I know I was a crusader, and there are connections to all these the castles that I saw on this trip. And although I didn't live in England, I lived in France. But France, England in those days, they traveled back and forth all the time, and there are connections there. So it was so when you do that, when you go into these moments, and we've all had that, you go somewhere and you go, I've been there before. You have that moment of recognizing something, even though you know you don't, or you meet a person and you go, I've met that person before, because that is a soul you've worked with before. So these are mm, connections we all have, we all bring with us into this life. And when you start recognizing that there are certain areas that pull, for me, there are certain countries that pull, or locations that pull, where I love to go and travel, because on that soul level, there is that recognition of being there. I know how that feels, and it's like a little bit of a homecoming. I don't. It just feels comfortable. There are other countries I've been to where I don't think I have a connection, or I don't know, where I don't really feel anything. So that's how I talk about past lives. I recognize we all have this. Most of us are not really aware of it, but when you start playing with that concept, you more and more memory comes up, and more um, ideas come up. So, and that's where I am on my personal journey right now. I'm just really fascinated by what I learned, and what do I bring forward from what I learned in that life. And that's the learning curve I am on right now. What is it I actually, why is this important?
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
love it. And
mhm,
I love that I mean, this is the Spirit Dance podcast. I'm so happy to hear and listen to your claim, because there's so many people out there that are really seeking, wanting to understand,
mm,
Like I've met this person before, but I don't know where. I don't know where. And you could both go at each other like, I
mhm,
can't remember anything. You're not in any picture at all, and or that you've been somewhere. And we've talked about this. My location is San Diego, and also Rome. I felt that Venice. I felt like there's some connection
mhm,
there. But I
right.
love hearing this conversation. Now that we're getting deeper into this and we're really honing in on your journey and the experiences and what you're learning about yourself. And I bet people watching this, we're going through YouTube, and we're also recording this, which is great. So how Okay, I always feel there's 2 Sabinas, and I I want to talk about this because I think a lot of us
Mm,
work this way, but you're deeper in your spiritual journey than some are. And so, but you may have this feeling sometimes that sometimes I feel like we're talking about we're traveling. Okay, I don't want much happening. I mean, there's too much alone time. I'm ready to go out and do this. And we're talking just as human beings on this
mm,
earth, whatever. And then we're going into, but there's a deeper connection
mhm.
spiritually. And so there's that other Sabina that's showing up and really starting to layer in those things about being a spirit dancer and being able to be connected with the earth and people. We're about almost like halfway into the podcast. We may even be close to being done, just depending on how much you want to share today. But could we go there and how you're feeling when you really bring in that spirit dance view every time you're on the on a space? You're like, I just want to leave it at that. When you're showing up and you're just in full alignment and you're traveling, how would somebody feel when they're in that journey? How do you feel when you're in that alignment? And how do you bring that in? Is that a good question? How do you bring that in? Because sometimes we wake up and we just see our pillow and we see this and that. When you're traveling and you're like feeling that full alignment, you start doing your steps. If you could share that, that would be wonderful.
Um, that's a good question and something I'm probably struggling to verbalize still. When I am here in this life, in this life, in my daily life, I know how often I get frazzled, fractured, because there is too many different things going on at the same time. And I feel as if I am playing too many different roles. And that for me is always a sign to rein in, to reconnect with myself, to go back into meditation, into silence, into being by myself, because there's only so much I can give or without becoming inauthentic. When uh, on this trip, on this travel, I felt I was feeding myself and I was really gathering pieces that I had lost or that I had neglected back into myself. So I came out at the end of the 4 weeks and really felt I am whole, I am complete, and I feel strong in myself. And so now I can shield better against the frazzle around because I know how I want to feel. This is a push-pull all the time, and it will get weaker, it gets stronger. I know that. This is I'm perfect only is a second. But it's how I want to feel. So coming back and seeing some of the things that happen around me also have led me to making a couple of decisions already of saying, I want to let this go. I want to let that go. I need, and I don't want to need, but I want to keep stronger on the alignment and not frazzle as much going forward, because the purpose of my work is to be a light worker. And this is where there's two Sabinas in there, and that happens a lot because a lot of times that shines out into what I do, but it isn't the work I want to do. And some of the volunteer work that I do just is good volunteer work, but it's not light worker work. And I want to focus more on that portion. So that was for me the transformation of I I want to let go of some things to be stronger in that which I really believe I want to be.
I think that really serves the area here because
Mm,
I hear that you are working on your alignment, and thank you for being so authentic. And I love asking that question because it gave you a moment to, to say, "Hey, I'm
mm,
learning this for myself." And you
mhm.
have like it threaded in through deep and deep inside you. You really truly have felt why you are the spirit dancer, and you have some stories around that too.
Yes.
But to verbalize it, and this is where I love how you shared that because we have a lot of stuff inside us that we don't share.
Yeah.
And you're talking about even doing some work where you get to, get involved in things, but you don't show up as the spirit dancer. You're showing up as a person that's volunteering and you're enjoying it,
Mhm.
and you are finding that there's ways, and I wanted to hold that space because I feel like it serves your podcast, because I bet people have that question of, I'm going to work and then I'm the spirit dancer, and I mean, and stuff like that. But I believe that this is why your podcast is healing and important to the people that are really wanting to talk about past lives. Almost everybody around me, we're discussing it as if it's just regular stuff. So it's not for everybody, but when you get in that alignment, there's just so many people seeking this information. These conversations really need to be had. I think you're one of those people, and the way you speak in your vocals, because I'm a vocal person, and I hear that in you, that you are here to serve at that deeper level. And so some of the things that you're doing right now, when you got back from your vacation, it wasn't in alignment with what you were feeling, but you're like, I need to go out and serve. I already said I
Yeah.
would, but how can I do it better? So I think this conversation is very powerful
Yeah.
for everybody to not feel like they're doing dual lives, but they may have to do that for a while because that feels right. And
Mhm.
then they get to bring in more and more when they become more truth. In
Right.
your journey, and this is probably the last question I'm going to ask, I'm just going to let you be free in the how you want to roll with your podcast from here. Are there times, and I find that this is a question when people around you may not believe everything that you are feeling and you're saying, you could say in your podcast, are you finding that sometimes it you are seeing that other people are doing this, or for you also of really showing up in a way that feels like, I want to be the spirit dancer today, until you start talking in a way that's just different and some of the things that you say, do you get uh, concerned or uncomfortable when you're in an atmosphere when somebody sees you as a spirit dancer? They're like, "Oh, Sabina, who were you yesterday? Are you still having those challenges?" I think I have those challenges, and I think there's people
Yeah.
that do.
Yeah. And that is something I think we all who work on the spiritual level encounter because people are at different stages of their life journey. And if you are at a level that hasn't encountered this yet, then you're going to feel this is weird, or you want to just push back, or you know, I work with energy. I get a lot of pushback on, but this isn't science. Well, yes, it is not. It's something different. It's okay. you know, you just when that happens, I personally just send love and light to that person. That's all you can do at that point. That's perfect. They are where they are, and they will learn what they need to learn in this life along the way. And all I can do is send them love and light and wish them all the best. But there is no judgment there. We are all on a journey. And that's why I keep saying it's the spirit dance journey for me, but it's everybody is on a journey to grow themselves. That's their sole purpose.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to say one more thing because I love what you're talking about here, that you are knowing that that's your purpose here in life.
Mhm.
So as you uh, do your transition more and more, especially after being gone for 5 weeks, and you're acknowledging there's certain changes that you are going to because you're ready for it. Not anybody's pressuring you because you're ready to say, "Hey,
Mm,
I want to get more into this because I can feel my purpose when I was gone for
mm,
5 weeks." And I love how deep you're in your journey, and we're still talking about this, as you said, because sometimes you just kind of throw people off and you're like, "Well, am I comfortable with that?" You're just learning more about your comfortable space and showing up as you. And also, I hear about that you're discovering about just like respect for the people around you because they're in a different journey. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to add that,
mm.
highlighted a bit because I appreciate that you said that.
Thank you. Yeah. And it
Let's talk
is,
more about travel and where you want to go with this, my friend.
I want to travel more.
I'm leaving now. Bye. That'd be funny, Sabina.
I have
Just
a
all of a sudden, just
long list of places I would like to experience, but we'll see what happens all of it. N Travel is, it's physical travel, it's also mind travel. So just because you cannot physically travel doesn't mean you can bring yourself into different places. And this is where shifting realities comes in. W- You know, I love reading. As I said, I love historical fictions. That is something where you can step into a different reality. Documentaries on watching movies, everything gives you that allows you that moment in your mind to step into that picture and be part of it. So, uh, armchair travel is really what this becomes, and I do that a lot too because it too feeds me. It gives me ideas. It gives me insights. It's different than being physically present in a different location, but it too is a way of traveling. So again, intentionally searching for the subjects you love or the time periods or the locations and then learning about that is another form of traveling, and you never know what you find.
what do you see in the future with the spirit dance, travel, whatever you're going to call it? What do you envision that you're stepping into here as
Mhm,
we're going into this podcast? Maybe we
mhm.
may be talking about this quite a bit if there's more that comes through with this. But where do you see the future? What can you feel at this point?
I would
For
like,
others and for you too.
yeah, for me, I am still in the more dreaming stage than in the conceptual stage, but I would love to take very small groups who are interested in energy work, in sacred landscapes. England, there's a lot there, and archaeologically, there's a lot there. And I would like to take small groups there to experience that. And so I've sort of started working out a program, so down the road, that would be something to do. It'd be fun.
I see that, Sabina. I
Mhm.
see that. And you can quantum leap that easily, huh? It's just the stuff that you're dealing with when you first got back from your trip
Yes.
to being able to say, "Hey, okay, I'm ready to quantum leap this. I'm ready
Mm.
to
Yeah.
speak about it," like any room you walk into, or I mean, it's literally just getting out of your way.
Mhm.
Just being that. Yeah, we'll get that going for you. You just tell me when you're ready. We'll do that. Yeah.
Mhm. So, to be continued.
Yeah. Sabina, do you see that this may be a few I feel like you're like exploring in this
Mhm.
podcast right here. This is the first time that I would say that I could be wrong, but like out there talking about this, about the traveling, connecting
Mhm.
with the spirit dancer
Mhm.
and bringing people along with you, how you can show up in different ways when you are saying, my past life. I wanna bring people to England because I know that that's a great spot to start. I know it very well, and we can start doing those past
Mhm.
lives to know, "Hey, are you the connection for this traveling?" I find this to be very, very powerful. And I've been traveling with my family. We went over to Italy, then we went to Greece this year and Spain. And I just feel like a tourist when I'm there. And I'm like, I just feel empty, even if I'm looking at something beautiful, unless
Yeah.
I take a moment and I sit with it. And then all of a sudden I can feel something. So it's not just like, because there's so much beauty that you see when you travel. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, I see this beautiful thing. Yeah, okay, there's history there. But then all of a sudden to be able to feel that, I can feel as if I was there. And I
Mm,
like what you were saying, you can physically be there. But I think even while you're there, what's wonderful is that you actually are doing a spiritual journey while you're there too, because
mm,
your eyes can just be like looking at the black and white, like what's right there.
mhm.
So I find this powerful what you're saying because it gives the opportunity of what you said at the beginning of your podcast, what you were saying about that there's some areas that you touch and you just feel like I need
Yeah.
to be there and I'm glad I'm here. But I
Mhm.
find that's going to be something people are going to be talking about this with you. Hey, I want to go with you. Hey, what's going on? Because when you said that, I was like, oh, I can see this is
Yeah.
going to be very beautiful. Yeah,
That's
go.
why that's why I use the word intentional traveling too, because it really comes down to if you know what you feel, what you want to feel, you can make that connection and it becomes beyond the this is beautiful, but I feel the connection to myself personally, and then it becomes meaningful. And that is what I think I can help others find on down the road. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
I think we're really going to be doing more podcasts on this. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit?
Mhm.
You know, and this is great to be inside the podcast and talking about this because this will give ideas when people come back and also look at the replay is I would love for you to use this as your hub and then do the fingers so that when people are coming in, the fingers off on the information of something about past lives and connecting them with almost as if you're onboarding them into saying, is this a fit for me? But they can experience this on a podcast to know if this type of travel is there for them. But you get to do the nuggets of all the traveling you've been doing, but also your expertise in that area of how you would connect with somebody on why they would want to go somewhere specific and
Mhm.
for you to be able to connect them to that. So I could see this being some layers and you building so people really get the connection and it can be an ongoing conversation for a bit.
I think that's a good plan to think about how to build that out.
Yeah,
Thank you for bringing that
yeah,
forward.
yeah. I think that's powerful.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because then you get to experience your work on your podcast and
Mhm.
how you bring somebody through the process. But we could tell people ahead of time, you who are out there that are interested,
Mhm.
that these are the things that you want to do, and this is how I would do it. Come in and let's open you up as a vessel. That's what I say. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
the spirit dance way to speak about this way, open me up to acknowledge that there's certain things that, wow, I'm leaning in even more about this because now I can understand
Mhm.
about intentional traveling. And this will change people's lives. If they decide they don't want to go on this type of travel, you've given them some love on these areas that
Mhm.
they want to look at when they go and travel. And then those people that are really seeking what you are speaking about, there's so many people out there like that. I don't think there's enough people doing what you're doing because I bet there's at least maybe a few doing this, but to
Mhm.
be able to bring all those components in for somebody to connect, what do you think about that?
I haven't seen anybody. Yeah, you're right, not define it quite that way.
Yeah,
That is
it's a
a
great niche.
it's a great thought process of building that out so it really resonates with somebody. Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, well, I guess
Thank you.
we will end this session of your podcast, but I think that you have some communication to do on like how you want to play with this, because this is where you are so creative. When we talk about something, your brain is already working on this stuff, and sometimes you're done before I finish a
Mhm.
sentence. So
Yes.
I have a feeling there's a seed, there's a Sabina seed just like all of a sudden just growing and connecting with her
Mhm.
spirit, because Sabina is very open and creative that way. So I think we put a good seed in there because I want to hear more about
Yeah.
this.
Good.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is going to be so. Thank you so much. This was a great ending, very transformational podcast for both of us, I think. And
Yeah, and for everybody. So we're just going to want to make sure we're looking at, different components of
yeah,
what you talked about so people can connect with it. Sabina, I am so appreciative that you came on, not really being scripted in something that was very new for you. You're growing so much, my friend. I really respect and appreciate that you did that. Because
thank,
uncomfortable space, that's growing space. This is
I know
perfect.
that's
Thank
why
you,
we're
my
here.
friend.
Thank
Yes.
you. And thank you to everybody who's listening to this. And so thanks.
Yes, thank you. And as we close this off, you are with the Spirit Dance Journey. Today we talked about transformational travel. Sabina calls it intentional traveling. You will want to come back and we will get more information out there so that you can start connecting the dots of how you want to show up for each podcast. And if you can't make it live, you'll get the link. And so you can find the recording because this is going to be fabulous. Have an insightful day. And we are so happy as your host, and this is Sabina's podcast, that Sabina gets to serve your journey and your purpose and opening you up.